working with my predecessor, Rob Walton, there was always a very much of a collaborative process. So, we would meet with the town if there were concerns. Mr. Quinn and I had a conversation the other day concerned about a cleanup of trees. I drove the whole street to see. I took pictures. I sent them to the forester. He's sending a contractor back to finish the work. The plan was all along to clean it up, but they didn't finish. So there's always that constant communication if there's a problem.
And then just for clarification for the public, so if the tree is outside the right-of-way, but its limbs are overhanging the right-of-way, right, and you deem it that the limbs are troublesome, you will get permission to trim the limbs, or you'll go ahead and trim the limbs?
Yeah, we get permission whenever we need to, and we prefer to, because we know the homeowners love their trees, we all do, and we don't want to be leaving anybody in a situation they're not happy with.
Okay, and then there was one situation where you explained to me if they trim over a certain number of branches from a tree,
40% than what they want they treat.
Right, so what happens is if the tree is in jeopardy, we're going to jeopardize the health of the tree because too much has to be removed, then we'll talk to the homeowner about removing the tree.
Okay, and so if it's beyond the right-of-way, is that the case where the tree is left on the property, or are the tree taken away in all cases? Because I thought there were some cases where the debris, where the tree was left behind.
So it's definitely a case-by-case basis. I often have to check with the foresters to see what the arrangement is, and then they'll respond immediately, and we'll, address it.
Okay, before we get off.
Yes.
I remember during Sandy, I happened to be mayor that year, or it seemed like a year, 2 weeks that we were without lights. The major problem was when the storm hit, it just overloaded the circuits overloaded the substations, and you could hear the sounds of these things exploding all around town. If what I understand you guys can do now is the substation can just re-trip or just shut itself down before it gets into a negative situation, because what happened back in Sandy, it took a week to get the substations ready, then a week to get the circuits back up, which was why it was 2 weeks. So we're very, very delighted that you guys have figured that out.
Thank you for that. Yeah, there are a number of things. Flood mitigation measures, where the substations would get submerged in a really bad storm. We're addressing all of that. We have a lot of plans to address all those problems that we encountered in Sandy. Yeah, things are getting better and better.
So, with reference to what Mr. Mancuso just said, with relation to power surges, do we still experience power surges in certain situations?
I really couldn't say for sure, but I do know that what Mr. Mancuso was referring to, a committeeman was referring to, is that we, the engineering department is really in charge of all that, but they make sure that we have, situations where we can, we don't have dangerous situations. It's basically, safety again is the #1 priority, so they're addressing that.
Okay. And for the trees that might look troublesome this year, but maybe next year, do you also keep a database of trees to come back and take a look at, or you just come through every year and just take a fresh look?
Basically, the forestry department, they take a fresh look at what they need to do. It's not really, I don't believe it's a database. They're reviewing the streets. Yeah, every cycle they're reviewing, right. So that's why they have to come back and again review all the streets and see what needs to be done.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I noticed, I think JCP&L had a subcontract going around town, looking at the poles themselves and digging them and putting, I think, a wrap around them. Can you talk to what is actually happening there, and if it's lengthening the life of the utility poles, and just give an overview of what that project is?
So, are you referring to poles being marked for removal or repair?
No, you're digging around them and then wrapping them, and
It's a Verizon project.
oh, it is.
Okay, thank you. Because I wasn't quite sure. But again, as we mentioned before, if we're not replacing the pole, sometimes what we're doing is reinforcing it to strengthen it in the meantime.
That's what they're doing now.
Yeah. Is that what they're doing with the Verizon poles? Right. So half of the poles are owned by Verizon, half are owned by JCP&L generally. That's generally the rule. All right, thank you.
So even though you each own 50%, you still use each other's poles?
Oh yeah, we share. Yeah, and we have joint use agreements, and we also work together. So I have a good relationship with your external affairs consultant at Verizon, and if we have an issue with a pole, we're in communication with each other. So it all works, we're all talking together to get things done.
Great. And one other thing I want to clarify for the public that I learned in one of the learning sessions that I attended at JCP&L's headquarters, which is right here in Morris Township
Yes.
on Madison Avenue.
Mhm.
They always tell you not to touch a downed wire. And I always wondered why, because you would think every wire is coated, right? Every wire that you see in your house comes sheathed in some kind of coating. Well, it turns out that the power line doesn't have any coating. It's actually a live wire that sits up there on the poles, correct? And when it comes down,
Yeah, at the
it's-
very, very top of the pole, so our wires are at the very top.
yeah, the very top, but they're uncoated wires,
That's why it's-
which I never knew, which is why you can't touch them.
So you have
Yeah,
to,
they're different.
you have to be so careful, don't ever go near a wire on the ground, and also don't lean on a fence. If there's a wire down on a fence, we've had that situation occur because it could electrify the fence. So, again, that's why we wait. That's sometimes why you'll see a truck sitting, babysitting the line, and people don't understand why they're sitting in their truck and not working on getting your power back right away. And the reason is that they're actually babysitting that line until the right crew is there to de-energize and make it safe and remove it from the street. We don't want anybody else touching it.
And generators can backflow into those lights.
Yes, that's the other thing, the generators can backflow, so we have to have the experts take care of that.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having me,
Sarah.
and you have my phone number if you need me.
Yeah, and just for clarification, also the public, we're not taking public questions today on individual outages or individual problems, but we are taking your questions. So if anybody has a question, you want to write it down or send me an email or Mr. Quinn an email, I'll give you my card. We will answer every